Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CPL Sub 6 weekly podcast. This is number 21, and we are covering the first 24 hours of Rise and Fall. The expansion has been out for a day now, and players are really digging into these games. I am Sarnath. Joining me as always is my co-host King Louis XIV, and joining us as guests we have Under and Agathy.
Hey guys,
Hello,
Agathy.
I'm
Yep.
Up.
So we have a bunch to talk
48
about
hours.
tonight, and there's so many changes to the game. Everyone's exploring things, realizing the game's pretty much been turned up on its head. So what do you guys think so far of this first day?
It's almost been 2 days. It'll be at 9 o'clock. It'll be 48 hours. Done a couple, about 4 duels with it, and it's definitely like somebody takes your city near your capital, and you usually just get it back when they can't hold it because the loyalty.
The
Definitely changes
loyalty
things.
mechanic is quite interesting because it allows more like tall empires to be viable compared to the original game where like wide was almost always a good choice. I mean, like because of the loyalty system and which is linked with the amenity system, it makes new strategies very viable nowadays. Like if you want to get a huge, big 20 pop city, you could actually be ahead of that player which has 5 more cities than you have.
That's good. Anything that's more like Civ 4 that it was encouraging the tall cities. I think that's more fun to build a few tall cities and really get into building up your city than to have all this infinite city sprawl stuff.
Well, I think there's room for both now. Like before, there was only one option. Before, you could just say, "Oh, let's get as many cities as possible, and I'll win the game." But now you can kind of like judge, "Oh, should I go tall or should I go wide?" So like you just have to decide giving the map or decide giving your strategy you want to try.
Well, I was in a game last night where Scotland was on a rampage, killing everyone, and the only thing that was slowing him down was the loyalty thing because he was losing a few cities to revolts, not revolts, the independent thing.
Especially for Scotland, because their unique ability. If they, let's say that player would have won tall, he would have maybe had more happiness in his cities and would have had more like production or great people points from those cities. So like it sacrificed that aspect of Scotland to go wide. So in that game, if you the way you're speaking.
It's really weird because they're encouraging both directions now, and it's like you said before, you had to build wide. Very, very few times could you build tall off of a handful of cities and get away with it. But now that's more feasible because look at the changes to Enlightenment specifically as a civic. The two policy cards, rationalism and the free market, respectively. Rationalism now, it doesn't just double your science output for your campuses for each city. Now it gives a 50% bonus if you have a population of 10 or higher, and if the campus has an adjacency bonus of 3 or higher. Unless you meet that requirement, the card does nothing for that campus. And the same thing applies to free market, which applies to commercial hubs, except instead of an adjacency bonus of 3, it requires a 4 or higher. So you're pretty much required to run the adjacency bonus cards in most situations in order to make use of Enlightenment, and that's going to eat up so many of your policy slots that it could really be detrimental to you if you're not careful.
Yeah, I find it quite interesting because like there's also a new I think meta slowly forming, which is like both in between. You get like a few very tall cities to be able to exploit those cards and try to conquer as many cities and put your governors in those cities to keep the loyalty up to defend those tall cities in the middle of your empire. So I think like those new cards actually add quite something to the game, and also they changed quite a few governments, which we will have to wait and see what becomes popular, I guess. My favorite change is the monarchy government, which was not very popular before in multiplayer. But now there's quite a few strategies that allow the building of walls, allow building of like more defensive positions. So if you're a defensive player, I think now you would like this expansion right now.
Did anybody get a golden age or a dark age yet? I've only been in the normal age. So far I never got the dark or golden age.
I've got a few. I've got a few golden ages. I got one when at the first era when I was playing Scotland, which it wasn't really useful at all because I think the inspiration I chose was something along the lines of 10% more progress towards Eurekas. So it didn't really help me that much in the classical era. But I got another one as Netherlands yesterday. In I think it was medieval era, and it really skyrocketed my science because I had the library scientist.
What do you get for the golden age besides what is it, a dedication? You get your cities are less likely to fall, lose loyalty on your golden age.
How the loyalty system works as far as that goes is each of your citizens, your population in each of your cities counts toward loyalty points, and the pressure that that city's population puts not only on that city but cities within 9 tiles of that city. Now the farther those cities are away, the more that diminishes and how much value it is. However, in a dark age, each population point is worth a half point of loyalty. In a normal age, it's worth 1 point. In a golden age, 1.5, and in a heroic, each population point's worth 2 loyalty points a turn from that city. So this means your cities have to be more clustered as opposed to just leapfrogging forward. Because if they're not spreading the pressure to each other and covering each other, as some people saw today in the event that was run by Clan TDF, there was a player that was really struggling to keep control of his cities because he built them up in a line to where they weren't able to cover each other.
And this is where the debate lies again, because if you put your cities all close to each other, sometimes it's not efficient to become a tile civilization, because like sometimes you need more tiles to work on your bigger cities eventually late game. So it's another decision to take into consideration.
How long do they last, the golden age or dark age?
However long the era lasts. You have that age for that entire era until the next transition. And I have to say, in Rise and Fall, these eras last a lot longer.
Yeah, with the changes.
If you're way ahead and you cut down your research, you can make it last longer if you're way ahead of everybody. Not until somebody does the research that triggers the next age does it end.
I think it's an average of what age people are in, where it goes to the next age.
I think it takes into account the actual era points, but I'm not sure. I haven't made the math behind it. So like, let's say roughly everybody's almost at a normal age, then they give a 10-turn warning before the next age. But I think we just need to play a little more around it.
Did it last like 10 or 20 turns when you actually got it?
Well,
it depends what age you're in, really. If you get one in the first era, then it's going to be a lot shorter than, say, the medieval era or Renaissance era. Because the game is significantly, especially in the mid game, has slowed down a lot. I was playing a game yesterday where 3 of us were on 100+ science per turn at about turn 70, and none of us are even close to things like calves.
It's really detrimental to the economies and infrastructures of every Civ player out there. Because it's detrimental is maybe not the right word. For those of you that are used to just powerhousing your economy in the early game, you're going to find yourselves bogged down tremendously. You don't get trade routes until you make markets in your commercial hubs now. The meritocracy card that everyone loved and cherished is now gone. For those of you who aren't familiar with that card actually being called meritocracy, it's the policy card that would give you +1 culture per district in your cities. It would make that city generate an extra point of culture per district it had. And that used to really fund and push everyone's civics in the mid-game, and even the late game. But that card no longer exists. You have to get a golden age to pick a dedication that does what meritocracy did. So that, coupled with the gold issue that's now created by the loss of trade routes early, it's really pulling everyone back. And then you have the city-state changes with the envoys, that the 3 envoys only apply to if you have the first-tier building built in, like for the campus, the library, a market for the commercial hub. All of these things have really stacked up and have really pulled things back. Like, night timing attacks are incredibly difficult to pull off now because people just don't have the gold.
I think tile improvements that have got gold on them are a lot more needed now.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think production overall is also like resources that is like more valued, like it's more independent than gold. Like before in the base game, we were just producing like units early and upgrading them into like better unit later when you get the 50% off cards. So like you get a very strong army very fast. But now there's a few civilizations like Zulus or like Mongols which actually benefit from building units from their cities. So in those instances, like I think it values more the new engineers that's also brought up, which are new industrial zones and which civs like Netherlands already benefit from. So like if you like playing Zulu and like you decide that you want to build a corp, I think that's the English word for it, then it's really easy because you can build it very early on. But then it means you need the production to do it. So before you could just like build units and upgrade them with gold. Now we don't have the gold to do this. So like that's a new strategy basically.
So the religion get better with this, with the rise and fall? It's different now. There's some different benefits to religion now, isn't it? It's easier. Isn't it easier to build units with religion earlier?
Well, there are dedications now that like allow you to use more faith than before. And there's also like a common strategy somewhat that like got discovered like today. There's a pantheon now that like, well, it used to exist before as well, but where you could get faith from chops. Do you remember the name for this one?
God of the Harvest.
Yeah, so if you take God of the Harvest and then you combine it with one of the new governor, which is Magnus, if I'm not mistaken, you get suddenly 100% production from chopping, as Magnus does. And if you have the Pantheon, you get the same amount in faith. So then it allows more like options for religion, or even if you don't play religion, just for like some timings for a dedication or to buy units later with theocracy or with another golden age choice you would have.
I think there's I hear somebody saying they were buying units with faith, but they weren't even in theocracy. There was some cards with.
I think it's a governor. I'm trying to find it now, but you can, with the thing that Agathy was saying, you get God of the Harvest, and you can all play Russia, and get some good lavras going, and you can purchase settlers for like 160 faith, I think it is.
And you can also get a dedication that specifically, part of it is you can buy builders and settlers, civilian units with faith, and they cost 30% less faith and gold to do so. So if you're chopping out and producing all this faith and you're not wanting to use religion, you can pick that for your golden age dedication, and all of a sudden you're buying and chopping all of these settlers out. And if you have Magnus's second tier promotion to where settlers coming out of the city that he's the governor of don't lower the population, you can do this as much as you like every turn.
What do you get from, I don't usually chop things. How much do you get faith from chopping? Like how fast?
It depends. It depends when you chop it.
I think the base calculation for chops is like production. I think it's 5 base production plus 1 for every tech you've got.
By chopping, you're getting that?
I think it's something like that. It might be more, actually.
Now let's think it's getting double value from Magnus, 50% more if you have the settler card, and another 50% more if you have the ancestral hall in your government district in that city. And you're getting an equal amount of that in faith with Goddess of the Harvest. So now you're not only one-turning settlers pretty much the entire game as long as you have enough chops. You're generating a stupid amount of faith that you can do whatever you want with, from buying great people to buying more settlers and builders. Could you imagine getting a serfdom timing and just dumping like 1,000 faith in builders with a dedication?
I played a game in solo player, and at the end, I didn't use my faith. I looked it up. I had so much faith I could buy like tank armies. I bought like maybe like 15 tank armies like to roll on my opponent. So it can be very, very strong.
I mean, it's something that shouldn't be overlooked. And let's look at religion itself. There hasn't been a lot of use for it because it was pretty much snubbed for the entirety of multiplayer for Civ 6 vanilla. However, with all the loyalty things going on and the governor itself that ties to religion, we could see religion actually make a showing in regular Civ 6 multiplayer on a fairly common basis. Because that's extra pressure people have to worry about. Because you can apply extra loyalty with religion, and then you have loyalty coupled with it, and you have people having to worry about so much, it can really throw off their game. Even if you only have 1 or 2 holy sites, it could make a big difference.
You can use religion to boost up your loyalty.
Religion can tie into loyalty, not directly. It can impact it in other ways, though. Like you can make religious choices that have been released with the expansion.
And also, religion's a good way to gain era score.
Yes, it is.
So if you're playing a civilization that benefits a lot from era score, or your strategy needs a specific
+2 for every city you convert on that if you have that one dedication.
Yeah, there's one dedication that gives 2 era score per city converted during that era. So
oh my gosh!
It doesn't have to be an enemy city; it could just be your own
any
city.
Any city.
And there's also like another buff to religion people overlooked a little bit. The apostle now has 3 choices of promotions instead of 2. So you actually can be like more versatile on what you want to do with them. So when you get one apostle, you're almost guaranteed to get one of the promotions you would like to have. So I think religion overall has actually been buffed.
Isn't one of the dedications to make your religious units move faster too?
Yes, that is the base portion of the dedication that applies to the builders and settlers. You only get the bonus for builders and settlers if you get a golden age or heroic age. Because the dedications, you have with the base value of what they do, and you can pick that in a normal. They're slightly worse in a dark age. They're a little bit better in a golden age, and they're freaking amazing in a heroic.
I played one heroic age actually. I had the chance to do it once, and I was doing a little bit of religion as well in that game. But basically, I thought that maybe early game there's 2 ways to abuse the dark age versus or heroic age policy, because like often it's easy to force yourself to be in a dark age very early on. So if you do so, and by avoiding to gain era score by, let's say, not exploring too much or just like doing whatever you want, then you can like boost up your era score when you get to for classical era and get a very, very insane amount of like heroic age and bonus right when religion hits.
I was talking to Battle Nation about this yesterday, and it's really hard to try and force yourself into a dark age early, because so many like little RNG things give you error score, like things like meeting another civ or coming across wonders if you're scouting.
Goody huts, clearing barb camps. I mean,
because Atom purposely tried to get into a golden age. I mean, a dark age, but he couldn't.
Of course, there's a little bit of RNG involved, but I know like maybe some of you have heard the new like abuse from the game as well, where there's the production is never lost. So if you don't choose anything in your city, it still produces, and you can choose the next turn what you want to do. So if you would abuse this mechanic and like turn when you get your capital turn 1, never build anything, just shift enter and your turn without building anything. You get to 2 pop and you can get a settler very early, let's say within like 1 or 2 turns from your capital. If you do this, often you didn't explore much of the map, so you actually force yourself in a dark age. So there's like ups and downs.
What's the mechanic to get to heroic age after you come out of a dark age? What do you have to do?
You just have to get the golden age, or earn enough era score to get the golden age from the dark age. So you just basically need to score as much aero score you can.
Yep, and that's how you get that swing. You get to pick 3 dedications, which is absolutely massive. You have extra loyalty pressure going on. And I have to say, I thought loyalty was going to be something we could kind of brush off our shoulders and not really worry about. But it has been so detrimental to people, like especially warmongers. If that war takes you like 20 turns, you are really going to be hurting. War weariness is stacking up faster than it ever did before. The loyalty issues, because it's directly tied to happiness. If your people aren't happy, that city isn't doing crap. And also we noticed occupation is no longer a thing. So this means city trading for you team players out there is now a viable thing, but you have to be careful because that city could flip for being too far away from you because you're not exerting loyalty on it other than its own population. So you do have to be careful.
I think irrelevant wars are maybe a thing of the past when people start learning about the governor. Is it Victor?
Victor shuts down
Victor,
early
yeah.
game aggression rather handily.
What does he do?
His base value, just appointing him to a city, will give that city an extra 5 combat strength for defensive purposes. And right after that, you can make a promotion to him that gives all of your units inside of that city's tiles have +5 combat strength. It's a free general.
Actually, I had a game today where I took Victor as the first thing. So I spawned right next to the Zulu. I was Scotland, and I thought I would die very early because we were like 7 tiles apart. And then I appointed Victor, got a general, and even got the Defender of the Forge. Not Defender. Defender of the Fate.
Defender of the Faith.
Yeah, Defender of the Fate, because we decided to allow everything in that game to test many mechanics. So if you do these kind of combos, you can get like up to 10, 20 combat strength extra on your early warrior if you want it. And so it can be like, I think the governor situation is actually quite interesting because like most of the time you would say, oh yeah, this governor is really OP in that situation, but you find yourself that you wouldn't be able to use that specific like situation in your gameplay. So even though we talked about Magnus, about Victor, most of them I think are very, very like good in different situations.
When you want to build a new city, it'll tell you if it's going to start out with some negative loyalty. You have these little -5, 7 all over the place where you could plop your city down. That's good.
Yeah, if you try and forward settle someone, you get like -20 loyalty.
You also get 1 era score sometimes.
Yes, you do. Apparently, we saw that in today's game, actually.
I played Canuck and he took my city right by my capital, but because it was right by my capital, he couldn't hold it. It just flipped back to me eventually.
Yeah, the loyalty is no joke, man. And another thing, I want to touch back to religion here for just a second. And the reason for that is because it's so much slower to get economies off the ground, this opens the door earlier on in the game for players, both single and multiplayer alike, to opt in for that holy site. Because before it was such a huge investment that it was literally like shooting yourself in the foot getting it most of the time. But now the game has slowed down so much in the early game that you have that time to build that holy site if you so choose. And some of the choices you can make with your religion that do boost your economy. Before we're like, oh, it's +1 this, +1 that, +2, whatever. That's not a big deal. But you no longer have those super early trade routes. That +1, that like +1 gold for your commercial hubs from stewardship, and that +1 science for your campuses in those cities that have them, all of a sudden that's a lot more valuable because you don't have 5, 6, 7 trade routes each providing a bunch of gold.
Isn't there also a structure you can build with that governor that helps your defense that gives you like a little fortress or something? I thought there was some kind of redoubt or something. Isn't there something you build with that guy too? To your defense? It's just a bonus combat. I thought there was something you build too.
Well,
That
there's a
defensive
new.
governor.
Go ahead.
You're talking about Warlord's
build-
Throne? Where
Is it like a structure that gives you defense?
There's something where if you take if you build the government plaza and then take Warlord's Throne, any city you take, how was it doing? Capture an enemy city grants 20% bonus production to all cities for 5 turns. Is that you're talking about?
So you think now the game is less, you can't spam as many units early like before?
Oh, you can. It's just like you have to like really choose what you want to do, basically. It's just like if you do, you might not have the gold necessary to upgrade them, so you might need to use them earlier than what we used to do in the Vanilla Civ. But at the same time, like you could defend like much smaller empire with fewer units than before. So you could decide to only build a handful of units, get a few walls up, and maybe like hold on. Like there's a few new civs that can actually do that very well.
Like horse and cav rushes?
I don't know. Cav rushes are a thing of the past. The pike and shot is just destroying it left, right, and center. It's such an easily and readily available technology, and field cannons are literally right behind it.
What about spearmen? Do they make them any different or the same?
They are the same, but the Xayj policy card now gives that 50% production bonus to spearmen and anti-cavalry units alike. So all of those policy cards that you're used to seeing that apply to melee and ranged units of that for those eras, just like the one that you pick up at Feudalism, those apply to anti-cavalry units now. So making spearmen and pikemen is a lot easier now. You didn't get that bonus before.
You never got that before? They're considered melee, they're considered anti-cav.
They're considered anti-cavalry. Melee is a class of its own.
Agogi used to read that. Agogi used to read that it was 50% bonus production towards melee and range units of that era, and anti-cav units are.
Did the first horse get that 50% bonus?
There's a different card for it.
Horses is maneuver.
I mean, is there an early card for bonus 50% production on horses?
Yes,
yeah, maneuver.
It's maneuver. It's in the military tradition, which you need to pick up for flanking and support bonuses anyway.
Which many people skip early to get an early government as well. So it depends like how you want to play.
Why is monarchy better now? They gave some new cards in there. Why is monarchy more viable than it used to be?
Well, that's my opinion, though. Like people might disagree with me, but monarchy had benefits which people often overlook, like such as the housing bonus from cities with walls, or people often didn't like the monarchy because it gave 3 slots for military cards and only like 1 slot for the yellow cards, which I don't remember the name for them.
Economic.
Yeah, okay, economy cards. So. But nowadays, like there's like I take Georgia as an example here. Like building taller is more viable in a way sometimes, and if you build walls in your cities, you can actually build less units. And as we were saying, gold is now a big impact and big decision on the game. So I think less units can actually help you maintain a, let's say, a relatively good economy. And walls allows you to get less of those units out and be still safe at home. So this being considered, I think monarchy is actually quite strong because like the bonus with walls, and you can often there's like a wall card also that you could get for 50% off on wall production. So if you put this up, get your walls in your cities, you can actually use monarchy really well, and even tech for something else different than steel. Often people like used to rush steel to get like walls in every city before because you gain 200 defense strength. I think it's still the case in the expansion, but now we're not as dependent on that steel technology to really like push it, to really rush it all the time. And if you decide to take a different tech path, you can get universities quicker. You can get quite a few things quicker, such as field cannons as well. And I think it's actually a good government now to choose.
The old metas have been blown up. They're like somebody that doesn't like just uses their old skills. That's not going to work too well. If they just say, "I'm just going to do what I've always been," it's going to like.
Well, yes and no. Like maybe they're gonna get lucky and somehow it's still going to be a good strategy because it can still be a good strategy, I think. But there's now so much more stuff in the game that you actually have to like judge on whether or not you should actually go with the calf meta we used to do.
Harder to
Now,
snowball now because when you take a city, sometimes you don't keep it. So I would think it's not as easy to
There's
snowball
so
now.
much risk involved with war now. It's a lot different than it used to be before. Sure, domination can be the easiest path to victory, but if you don't know exactly what you're doing and you don't play your cards right, if your opponent outplays you while defending, you're quickly going to get turned on your head. If you really got to know what you're doing.
yeah, as we were saying, Victor is actually very strong. There's also like an ability from Victor that allows the city to shoot twice or allows the city to not be sieged. So like even if it's a very heated battle, the simple fact that Victor is there really like can be a turning point.
I mean, if you have, let's say, field cannons, crossbows, whatever, in the encampment and in the city, you have walls up and victors there, those encampments and the city walls are both going to shoot twice. And then you got those 2 crossbows shooting out too. That's 6 ranged attacks a turn coming from that city. 8 if those crossbows have the promotion for it, which is promotion 4. So you have Victor can really lock down an area effectively for that city. If you have a narrow choke point to your area, you just pop Victor in that city, drop that encampment down, and you just lock it down. And it's going to be hell to push through.
If you had other cities that were close by that had an encampment, then you get even more.
No, it only applies to the city he's in.
I think saying this though, it will. I don't think there'll ever be enough changes to deter certain players from a nice little early irrelevant war.
Oh, that's for sure. And especially like we're talking about our war is a detrimental, but there's still a way to kind of like try to make a loyalty work for you as well. Because there's a few governors, like well, just appointing a governor in your city often gives I think 7 loyalty, and I don't not sure on the numbers per turn. So even if you took a new city which has exerted like pressure from the other civilization, you can still keep it if you keep a governor in there. And there's a new governor also called Amani, if I'm not mistaken, which can exert a lot of pressure on other cities. So if you're going warmonger and loyalty is a big problem, you can just put her as well around.
Yep, and they're 2 different promotions, so you're going to have to promote her twice. But one of them exerts 2 loyalty pressure a turn on enemy cities within 9 tiles. And the other one puts +2 loyalty for your own cities, as in like defensive loyalty. So you're going to have to promote her twice if you want to use it that way, so you're getting both sides of the benefit there.
When your loyalty goes to like 75 or below, you start losing some production, right? I think.
Yeah, and it hits so hard. Oh my gosh. Some cities go from being really good to almost worthless if you're not careful.
Does it keep getting worse as you get closer to zero? Your production?
Remember the old occupied status? How it used to have no growth and it would take like 500 turns to build something? It almost gets to that point.
But there's also like a new district, the government district, which can help with loyalty though. So if you like build it not too far from the cities you plan on taking, you can exert loyalty on those cities, and then you'll be fine to actually like try to keep them in your empire.
Have you guys run into some emergencies?
Oh yeah, tons.
Yeah.
If someone takes a city-state, it pop triggers an emergency. Taking an enemy capital triggers an emergency. Like, those are the ones we've seen the most of, especially city-state captures.
I've had 3 emergencies declared on me in the last day that I played. I got the city-state one, the concurrent capital one, and the religious emergency declared on me as well. So I think like those emergencies are the best. I'm sorry?
What happened? Did it change the game up, or did it?
Well, I think the players I was playing with like figured out that it wasn't a good idea to necessarily like accept the emergency because they probably could not have like taken out the capital city I had taken already, or would not benefit from the religious one at all, because like I think the benefits are, I don't remember what they are, but I don't think that if you are not the religion player, then it shouldn't be worth it. But so it did impact the game a lot, because if it does happen, let's say people decide to try to stop me from getting too strong by getting back that city state or that capital city I took, and they fell, I gained a lot of gold. When I mean a lot, is a lot of gold. It scales with era, and I heard that like up to atomic or modern era, it can be up to 5,000 gold if you actually manage to secure it.
So it's going to speed. So if you fail at the emergency, it's going to speed the game ending, because the top player is going to just get that big boost.
I don't think it's when it's a top player doing it. I think it's just random.
Well, the game thinks it's a top player, but it's a little bit random.
If it's the person who's ahead gets a emergency against him, that's a big deal. Is it going to speed the end of the game?
We do have a screenshot actually that's been submitted where an emergency rewarded 5,000 gold to a player, and that was in the late game. That was in the information era, I believe, is what the screenshot came from. Now, that being said, the emergencies I've seen, where if you participate in it, you get like plus gold for all your envoys in the city-state. You get a pool of gold that's split between everyone who participates in taking down the player, and that scales with eras. But if you fail, the other player gets gold based on trade routes to the city-state, and he gets, like, at the time was 400 gold per participant in the emergency. So if 4 people decide that they're going to go after this guy and they fail, he's walking away with 1,600 gold.
And each emergency has its own bonus, am I right? Like, I think
yes.
Some emergencies. So like, if I take the religion one because Louis is here, like you gain a relic if you actually like defend from a religious emergency as being the target. So it can be sometimes very strong, sometimes like average. It just depends how many players are involved, basically.
Overall, I'm pretty.
The only ones I've seen are war ones.
It's pretty happy with the expansion. I think it's made the game a lot different and a lot deeper and more fun.
Yeah, because I played Civ 5, and when they released their first expansion, it was just a complete failure. So I was really hesitant. So I'm really impressed with the expansion so far. And people have been saying things like, "Oh, Magnus is OP," but everyone can take Magnus, so it's not overpowered if everyone can do it.
A good milestone. I keep track on the Steam Spy, which shows how many people are playing the games, and we finally passed. They have one that shows how many people played over the last 2 weeks, and we finally passed Civ. We had 609,000 people play over 2 weeks, and then Civ 5 was only 608. So I figured it would happen right around now when the expansion came out. More people playing that 6 than 5. I mean, it was inevitable, but it's just a good milestone to see it happen.
So which Civ did you try so far, and what was the best thing about it?
I think I just did Korea all 4 times. I like. It's really great to get those +4, and you do get the cards. You know, when you increase the adjacency cards, double it or whatever, 50%. You do get that with them too, so that's even better. Calculating it right, you do. Yeah,
I tried Holland and Scotland. I really liked Holland. You get a major adjacency for campuses and industrial zones on rivers. So it's +2 just for being adjacent to a river. And in a few of my cities, I had Hansa level industrial zones without the card.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that coupled with the government district, because it does apply a major adjacency to districts around it, I would love to see what some of our better Germany SimCity players could come up with, having that as an added bonus to chuck into that Hansa diamond. And, you know, so much has changed. And I want to take a moment here and ask the two of you here, and you as well, Louis, what civs have so far stood out the most to you after these changes? They could be the old civs or the new ones, because some of the old ones got changes too.
So
Yeah.
so far, I've just tried. I've only played like 4 duels, and I've just been doing Kree every time. I think I went up against the Kree. They seemed pretty good, but I was playing Canuck, and he was a little too far away from me to fully take advantage of it. So the full. It's really tough if you're right next to a Kree at the beginning, right? Because they can rush you with the scouts.
Yeah,
Koreans are a lot tougher now. I haven't really run into that. They haven't really tackled me too much, but I hear everybody saying that the barbarians are tougher now, more aggressive.
Yeah, I find the barbarians are a bit more clever in what they do.
Do they like build up faster? Like if you leave that camp alone, do more of them come than before? Like after a while?
No, I think more camps spawn, but I don't know, they won't just sit there and die. They'll try and actually save themselves now.
Well,
Need
they
some
actually
better
try
AI
to
to them.
improve the AI, yeah. So like if you read the patch notes, there's many changes they did to the AI, and I think those changes are also like being noticed with the barbs right now. So I think it's overall a good thing, even though like many players always blame the AI in Civilization because it is still a little bit dumb sometimes. Like now, there's a few new things that the AI can do very well.
Oh yeah, in wartime I've seen them focus fire units down if they have ranged and melee units mixed in, which they do now. It will try to do proper formations with those units, and it will use the ranged units first when it attacks. Instead of just bashing the units in randomly, it'll try to weaken your units first with the archers or slingers or whatever it has, before using the melee units to hit yours. And they will often focus fire targets down.
And often also they put their range units behind their melee units or in the cities where they're safe as well, which they did not always do before. So that's a new thing.
Are people actually getting taken out by barbarians because they're just not ready for it? Like their opening cities getting like harassed pretty hardcore.
Oh, I've seen a few players actually having a lot of trouble with barbarians. Maybe it's just because we were not expecting it or we just didn't know about it, but like I think the strength they have is the same as before. It's just like they changed a little bit the how the barbarians move or how they act on the map. And also, if you get into the free cities, they act similarly to the barbarians in a way. So if a free city comes next to you and it spawns unit, it could as well come and attack you if it wants, even if that city wasn't in your empire before. So you really have to try to like predict or at least have a few units around to be able to push back those barbarians if you have free cities or anybody around you.
You think the game is going to be shorter or longer or the same in general now with all these changes?
Much longer.
Oh yes, the game we had today, the one that I got to cast from TDF's event, that started at about 1 my time and didn't end until almost 7. So that was a 6-hour match, and they didn't get into the information era or the atomic era.
With smaller games, and if these 8 and 10 game guys go too long, maybe you'll see more 6-player games.
Honestly, I'm encouraging games at all sizes. The stability changes seem to be working for the most part. I've seen more problems in smaller games than larger ones. Like there was a 4-man game played yesterday that honestly it was plagued with desyncs, crashes, and then there's been a 10-player game since release, and it had no issues at all. The only disconnect was because someone's router reset, and he hot joined, no problems. We could see a return of 10 and 12-player games again. It could happen.
That happen? So we haven't had much 12-player games in Civ 6, have we? That are stable?
Not since it was only when Aztec was the only DLC. I mean, it was a free DLC we all got, but like Aztec was the latest released Civ, and that we had 12-player games going on a fairly regular basis here. And then the first DLC hit, and everything kind of went downhill from there. But honestly, things have picked back up. there are definitely some awesome steps in the right direction by Firaxis with whatever they've done with this game. And I really am excited to see what the community and what the players do with it. And I really hope to see more and more people hop on board and get the expansion, because it's awesome. There's a lot of quality of life increases that you guys will really appreciate.
Yeah,
And
I think
also,
the expansion's really good so far.
and also bigger games sometimes allow more civs to be played. Like we often hear about like, oh, this civ is OP, it's gonna like destroy everybody. But if you have a bigger map, if you have more players, it allows the game to go on longer. So sometimes some of those civs that like benefit from mid or late game bonuses are being more viable nowadays, I find. And another
So
thing
did
I
they
noticed
change?
also, hmm?
They
Well,
change
just
it?
the
Did
fact that the map is bigger.
stats of any of the old civs to try to balance things out? Because I haven't
They
really
have,
looked at the.
actually. America, for example, used to have a legacy bonus with the governments where it got a quicker increase for that passive bonus from the previous government. That no longer exists. It's not a thing anymore. So to replace that, America's diplomacy card slot, that green card slot that people are like, kind of hit and forget, right? That's a wild card policy slot for America. It doesn't matter how many of those green card slots you have in your government choice, whether it's 1, 2, 3, whatever. Those are all wild card slots when you play America. And that is incredibly powerful in the late game. Heck, it's pretty strong in the early game too, just with your first government. That's a free
But
wild card.
Scythia, and did they nerf Scythia and Nubia, Germany at all?
Nope.
No, but they've added more civilizations to sort of counter that. Like I guess Mongolia could counter Scythia.
And the new mechanics also like are not, as we're saying, like warmongering is not always the good option. So even if they're still very strong, sometimes like they can still like have trouble with loyalty or with any of the other civilizations around. I was also surprised that everybody expected Mongolia to very roll over every civ that there was on Civilization. But I didn't notice it too much, honestly, personally. Like I've seen a few Mongol players, and yes, it was very strong, but they didn't get to roll over everybody like we would have expected from Scythia from the base game. So I think overall, the like average of civilizations are somewhat balancing itself. Like there's less civilizations that are just too powerful. Like I think the new meta will, well, we still have a week before we really start ranking games before again in a CPL, but within that week I think we're going to slowly notice what are the new bans and what are the civilizations that players don't want to play, and I think those won't necessarily include Germany and Nubia and those ones. But we'll see though.
So far we seem to be getting a lot of new players in, right? Since the last couple of days, I see the welcome is pretty busy.
Yeah, 'cause some of the old big players are coming back as well. Like Baba Yetu is a huge Civ 5 streamer with like 500 viewers at a time sometimes. Blaze has just joined and he's a modder. I think they're all eager to try out the expansion. Hopefully Filthy Robot comes back as well.
So they came back to the CPL.
Yeah, Baba Yatu's in the game now, I think.
Well, that'll be a big help for the CPL then, because he's so popular. When he's streaming now, maybe people will realize he's back in the CPL to get some little extra bump for us out of that too.
Well, we'll see what happens with that, but and we kind of cut off topic here super early, but Under, what civs have stood out to you amongst the newer ones? Which ones kind of fell a little short of the mark in your eyes?
Well, I've only tried. I thought Holland was going to be a bad civ, but they seem pretty good. I'm in a single player with Mapuche at the moment. Everyone thought that he was going to be overpowered, but I've yet to see him do anything special. Scotland was a bit underwhelming for me, and they got a lot of hype.
All right, fair enough. What about you, Agathy?
There's quite a few civs that I was really expecting to be strong, but they're not as strong as I hoped. Like Mapuche as well. I was thinking they would be probably be able to have a very easy culture victory, but I haven't tried them out too much. I've seen a player play them, and I think it's a little bit hard to abuse their bonuses the same way the other civs would do. And I tried Zulus personally, and honestly, I'm not that impressed with some of the changes they made to the Zulus. Changes to meta with the Zulus because yes, you get encampment sets, you get units, but those units often are good in numbers and are sometimes hard to utilize on their own. So you often need to get some support units, which is a good thing if you ask me. So like you get support units or like your catapults or bombards to get you to cities. So this is the way I was seeing it.
Okay, some more balanced armies then. I noticed that a lot of players having to fall back to that. They couldn't just mass horses or knights. They had to bring other things with it. And I'm happy to see that, to be honest. I'm hoping that trend continues.
I will say that Zulu seems to be a civ that will get banned in most games. I think they're like the expansion version of Scythia was for vanilla.
I honestly feel that them getting access to core at mercenaries and the fact that they get a unit can turn into a core for free if it captures a city is honestly too strong. But we'll have to wait and see.
To be able to kill them, you'd need to be at least 2 eras ahead of them, because they can get knight armies quite easily.
Yeah, and that's just so incredibly hard to deal with. And those cores and armies have an additional combat strength bonus, and he can just hard build them at a faster clip than normally people would be able to. So even in low production cities, you could see him churning them out as often as you could normally.
If it gets in the meta, I also think the Zulus are very strong in team games. They could probably hold out any opponent if they want to. They just put their unique unit and later on upgrade them into like pike and shot, and this can hold anything. So basically, like the Zulu is a very good defensive civ also if you want to try it out.
I think it's more about, you think people are going to build like just a 1 or 2 governors and build them up, or get like a bunch of governors in general?
Well, if you play tall, you'll get probably fewer governors with more upgrades. But if you play wide, I think it's wise to get many governors just for the loyalty, because when you put a governor in the city, it helps keep it on your side basically. The new civ I was really hyped for was Georgia. I didn't get to try them too much, but I think their new bonus actually are quite interesting because they utilize religion and they also favor some religious play, which is one of the plays I really enjoy. So this is my favorite civilization so far, but I have yet to try them.
You think overall the new civs are like better than the average of all the old civs, or the same, or less, more?
Maybe if you average them, they'll be a little stronger, but I'm not sure. Like it's too early. We'll find out. There's quite a few old civs that got changes as well, and nowadays, like I know, like for example, like England gets a trade route. Oh, actually, no, I don't remember. I won't say anything here.
They get loyalty from the dockyard.
Yeah, that's it. And I think like overall, we also have like more value given to the entertainment district now because of the loyalty system. So it can be worth it to get an entertainment complex in your city, even if it doesn't give you any production or science or anything. Just because, let's say you play Scotland and you want to utilize their bonus to get like more production from your city and you want to be happy, suddenly the entertainment complex is very strong. So like civilizations like Brazil, which already had like bonuses towards like entertainment complex, are now stronger, if you ask me. there's also a new district that came out. It's called the it's an entertainment complex on the water. So I didn't see it yet too much, but I noticed that its production cost is actually quite high. So I'm not sure how much we will be using it, because well, first of all, it gets on quite late, and second of all, the water now has changed a lot, and I find that there's many ways to utilize some of the water resources and to gain production or gold from it compared to the base game. So I think we're going to see slowly also more coastal settles overall.
Yeah, I like the changes to coast. I've always enjoyed the coastal civs a lot more, and it seems a lot better to choose a coastal civ now.
There's definitely a lot of excellent potential out there for players wanting to capitalize on a variety of playstyles now, and Georgia's going to be pretty awesome to watch in the hands of someone who's more defensively inclined to make those walls, like you were saying earlier, for sure.
Yeah, this is a strategy I really want to try. This I'll probably try in solo player first, but if you could combine the monarchy government with the card for the walls and their unique wall building, you can probably get very big walls very fast. Or saying maybe 2 or 3 turns to complete a Renaissance wall, which is usually an insane amount of troops. So amount of production, I mean. And it saves you a lot of troops, so you can just stay with a few archers, a few pike and shot maybe, and you'd be able to hold everything. So I'd be quite curious to try this strategy.
The pike and shot is pretty devastating for a counter unit.
Well, it's a unit that the base game lacked, basically. So that's why cavalry was so important. It was so strong, because the only way to counter cavalry was with other cavalry.
It was either that or you got dumb luck and an amazing start for an AT crew push.
Yeah, that was the 2 options, basically. But now with the in-between pike and shot, it allows you to really to build spearmen early and also just stay safe at home. And players won't necessarily come and rush you with cavalry all the time.
Upgrade the spearmen to pike and shot?
Yes, you do. I don't know the gold. I didn't check how much it is to upgrade.
In general, gold is like gold now. People are a little gold poor now compared to the old game.
Oh, it's so rough.
Yeah, if you go into an early war and you don't have gold tiles or markets, you're gonna struggle.
You know, I'm gonna say something here. It's probably gonna agitate a lot of people, but you're gonna want barbs on in your games, because every barb camp you clear is worth 3 era points, and you're gonna need them if you want to get into a golden era. Otherwise, you are fighting one hell of an uphill battle to get those points.
Well, I mean, I had a game again with Zulu. I think I didn't clear a single camp in the whole game, and I still managed to get golden ages. So there's other ways to gain it, but obviously, especially in the early game, you get so much gold and so much value experience from barb camps that it's actually quite fun to play with.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's honestly more worth it to struggle with the barbs on a regular basis, because you get the gold for clearing the camp, you get who knows how much experience for killing the units off, you're getting boosts for bronze working, military tradition, which are very important technology and civic respectively. They give you so much to your early game for defending or for going to war. Knowing where iron is incredibly important. Getting a great general is, of course, make it or break it in many wars we've seen throughout the Civ 6 game that has been released. And then you have support and flanking bonuses, which again can make or break a war on their own.
People verified that the great generals are not stackable anymore?
Oh yeah, they don't stack at all. Great generals can't stack. They fixed it.
There's still one bug, I have to test it more, but if you walk a great general in range of a city or of a unit which has no movement points, it wakes up the unit at 0 movement points, and you could upgrade it. So a little bit like the Cossack thing. So let's say you attack with a unit, it's now at 50% health. You get a great general next to it. You could upgrade that unit if it got a promotion. So that's a new bug that maybe we need to address, but we'll see about that. I think overall, also it values more the military cards, which were neglected before in the base game a little more. Because of the new like units that we need to war other opponents, like as I was saying, like I see more catapults now, I see more bombards, I see more like basically every type of unit within an army. So because of this, I think now there's more options and more strategies around those civic
They
cards.
changed the. I think that's a good change. They made it so like archers don't, ranged units don't have as much effect on ships anymore, but bombards have more effect.
That actually makes sense. Like if I shoot a frigate with a bow and arrow, I should not be able to sink the frigate. Whereas if I lodge a cannonball through it with a broadside, it should do something.
Norway and anytime you try to harass with those early ships, those even archers can like ruin your day and just take out those triremes or the early ships. So that'll be good. To harass more with the ships.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it. Yeah. I guess if you get a catapult in your city and you're defending against Norway, it'd be good. But I didn't try it out, so I'm not sure how good it actually is.
That's really interesting.
Norway
actually.
too, because now Norway has the ability to raid early, and now that the goody huts are a little more valuable, right? Because you can use them to get era scores. So if you go on a little raiding party with Norway, you could get a little era rush.
I could see actually, because when you make your unique unit, you actually get 5 era points. There's like a little, remember the old golden ages that you could get into in the old Civ games by getting a kill with your unique unit? Well, this is kind of like that. You just get 5 points instead, which is actually a really big deal. So if you're playing a Civ like Norway and you make a longboat or 2 early and just send them in opposite directions to just scout and just grab coastal goody huts that you find, you're gonna get the 5 points for making the longboat, and then you're gonna get all these points potentially and all of these goody hut rewards, which could be amazing for your early game with how much slower things are now.
They kind of nerfed goody huts in the sense that gold and faith are a lot less from goody huts now because they changed the game speed modifier to affect gold from goody huts.
They just added an extra layer of strategy, right, and timing. Like you have to time your attacks or whatever to when the age is going to break, or especially if you're about to go to a golden age or something.
Well, there's also like a dark age policies that could be good for timing attack. Like if you take the +5 combat strength, but your units can't heal outside of your territory. If you're really in trouble, you put this on, and basically it doesn't change anything. You gain more strength, and your units can heal your territory anyway. Or you could try a very risky like strategy, such as like a timing push. Like you get like that one early horseman very early, put this card on, and you get an extra 5 strength on that horseman. So you could sometimes take a city with a horseman, a warrior, and a slinger, or something like this.
It'll be interesting to see what players adapt to and come up with. There's so much more RNG thrown into the mix. And something else I want to bring up that's been complained about a lot is Civs being too close together. And I want to bring this up because a lot of people that are having this issue didn't read the patch notes. The patch notes specifically stated that if you have resources set to abundant and start positions to balanced, it will spawn people too close. They have identified that as causing the problem. So if you put resources to standard and start position to balanced, then you'll be fine. We've had numerous game starts, we've had numerous looks at maps with the reveal all command from the console and single player that have verified that that does in fact work just fine.
I think it's also a good sign from Firaxis because they actually heard like some of the complaints or just some of the maybe like critiques we had in CPL from the multiplayer scene. So like now that the fact that the start location is actually slightly better, you can actually have a better experience basically as a multiplayer player.
Yeah, they should definitely, if they knew that it was an issue, they should have completely fixed it in the expansion.
I think we should get a lot of new players because Civ 6 was already better, was further along than Civ 5 was at launch, and now with the expansion, it's just even that much better.
I mean, it's come a long way with this expansion. We've had more changes to expansion than past games have received with their first expansion. So they took a massive leap forward, and like was just said, they've clearly been listening to some of the complaints and issues that have been out there from the community. And it goes to show that we do have a voice. What we say does matter. They do listen. They may not always respond, but they do listen, or at least they read these posts. So we need to keep on that for the things that we want to see, like a production queue. A production queue.
Actually, there was a mod for production queue in the old patch. Do you know if it's still working now?
I do not. I'm still trying to go through the workshop and see which mods are broken.
CQUI? That was always broken last time. A couple times I would try it.
Well, there's
really
for sure a few mods that are broken now, but I had my game run with some mods on, and it didn't have any issues. So I guess maybe there's a little bit of RNG also involved there.
There are more scenarios with this one. I see that in the league we posted something that you can have that as a tag to do scenario type games. Is that more of a thing now? Because I never remember anybody mentioning that in the vanilla.
Well, there's a few players, like I am one of those players who like to play scenario. There's a few players in the league, but it's still not very, very popular. And I haven't seen any.
You mean like those multiplayer mods? That's what you're calling a scenario? You mean like the nuclear mod, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so there's I think there was 8 before the expansion came out. I didn't even check if there was a new one with the expansion, but those game modes would be probably very interesting now with the expansion as well, because there's so many new mechanics that are involved in those. But I don't know if there's a new one. I guess I would have checked. I would need to check.
Those are fun. I'm surprised that people don't play those more because they're nice short 50 turn, 75 turn games.
Well, it's just not everyone's cup of tea. Civ is a very deep game with a lot of different ways you can play it, set it up, and everyone likes it different. You know, it's for again, like for all of our single player people out there that like to tune into our weekly podcast. You know, there's been a lot of huge changes to the AI. The AI doesn't always blind build districts and stuff anymore. They actually seem to put quite more thought into where they're dropping districts or their bonuses. If they're Rome, they don't just blindly drop baths everywhere. They only do it if they need it for that city. That's been proven through multiple logs and screenshots.
And there's also a better, improved espionage system a lot. So I didn't get to play a lot with it, but it looks pretty good so far.
It's amazing. Oh my god.
There's especially one mission that sounds super fun that I tried once but couldn't finish it yet because I'm not exactly there in my game. But you could reduce loyalty on a city with a spy. So there's a lot of things involved.
Oh yeah, you can reduce loyalty. There's a mission to eject a governor from a city. You can assassinate envoys from other players. Well, it's fabricated scandal, but it's an assassination for as far as I'm concerned.
So yeah, and the AIs also have a better espionage strategies, let's say. So if you're a single player, I'm sure you would actually enjoy those France games where you need to get a few spies out and really try to test the map.
So didn't they usually put the vanilla game on sale when there's an expansion? I think it's, see how much. They have some bundle pack you can get it all for a good deal too.
I know there was a bundle pack and quite a few people joined the community with a bundle pack as well. But I'm not sure if it already expired. We would need to check.
Yeah, but the Humble
You can
Bundle
get it
thing
for
has.
$30. You can get the vanilla for $30. So basically, you can get it for $60. Whereas, you know, if you bought it originally, you're basically paying $90, right? Because 60 plus. Not
Well,
bad.
yeah, but you've got to have it for a long time, you know, not just right now. So there's that to factor too. And if, let's say, you know, let's say you took that price at $60 you paid and you spread out over the number of hours you played, and let's say you did the math, you didn't pay very much for your entertainment if you're still playing.
It's the best. It's the video games, if you get into it, are the best. I mean, think what you pay a movie. You pay 10, like not even 2 hours. You got people here playing like 3,000 or 4,000 hours. So just yeah, it's like pennies.
Lots of replay value in this game, and whether you're a single player, you like stomping the AI with a couple of friends, or if you're a multiplayer in the league or one of the other communities out there, you know, there's plenty in this game for you to do. There's a lot of quality of life updates. We showcased a lot of those in TDF's event today, and from the UI is crisper. There's changes to the city little tab above your city, like it'll show your population increasing with how many turns left, production with what's left. It just overall looks a lot crisper, and it was a good update. It looks more polished now than it did before, even on low graphics settings. For example, when I stream, I usually turn the graphics setting down so I can get a higher FPS up to viewers. And it honestly looks really good even on low settings.
And there's
It's more
also
stable.
yeah, it's more
Stable
stable.
than in
It's like
general.
all those little details. Like if you don't finish a wonder, you still get a production from it, which is very fun. And like basically the interface is much easier to use, I find.
I really liked the loyalty lens. They took the religious lens change that they made. They used that as a foundation and they expanded upon it further. And you can also see loyalty penalties for a city. When you click on your settler and you're going to move it, it colors the tiles based on housing, whether it has fresh water or just, coastal, or it has no water at all. But as you go further out, you'll also see negative numbers over some of the tiles. And that's how much loyalty that city would lose per turn if you settled it there. That's an invaluable resource that is honestly very important for players to see.
Yeah, and we're talking big numbers. It can go up to -20, I think, per turn.
Yep.
On a tile. So like that means that like, well, when you found a city, you get 100 loyalty straight away. But if you can settle that city on a tile, which is -20 per turn, it means within 5 turns, that city is already free. And maybe 5 extra turn, that city would flip to the empire which it's next to.
You have to be really, really thoughtful about what you do now. And I like that level of depth add to the game. It raises the skill ceiling, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And overall, the game's also slightly more historically accurate in a way. Because before you could get tanks at like, I don't know, like 1700 game time. But now, because the game has slowed down a little bit, you get the correct unit more at the appropriate time. So you don't get nukes at like 1800. You get nukes more like at 1900 or around.
I'm playing a single player game at the moment, and something weird just happened. France, it's turn 58 and it's 1720 BC, and France just announced me because my espionage is bad.
Speaking, go ahead.
Well, because France also has a espionage is also a link to the embassy system or the diplomatic visibility. So if you don't have much diplomatic visibility, you lose this. Yeah.
I thought they were basically saying that I don't have spies.
You're not a bad person. I hate you.
Yeah.
What's so much better about the spies than before?
The missions are more immersive. The gains are much more impactful now. Because think about how long it takes you to get your infrastructure up for gold. If I steal 300 gold from you, that's going to hit you really hard.
Makes sense. they added more
There's
missions.
things like you get combat strength against civilizations if you have visibility over them as well.
Yes, that's right. And because France starts with a level of disability. Disability, wow. Diplomatic visibility. Well, I guess in Vanilla Civ 6, everyone thought France started with disability. But anyway, they get +3 combat strength over everyone at the start of the game because of that visibility. And 3 may not sound like much, but a general's 5. That's only 2 less. America's continent bonus is 5. Look how impactful that is on games. But that France will get this at all times.
Yeah, you only need 2 levels and you've already got better than a general. Except for obviously you don't have the movement.
And to couple with this, France's spies start with a promotion. So they're coming in the door acting as if they were 2 levels higher for anything from stealing money to great works techs, disrupt rocketry, or they got the promotions where, you know, they take no time at all to establish in a city. So as soon as they're sent out, they're immediately ready to go that next turn. Or one of the France's spies might get the promotion for quartermaster, where all of the other spies act as if they're a level higher for everything they do, as long as that spy is kept at home counter-spying. That could be huge. You could do so much damage
Even
to a
like
player's
early-
economy.
How fast could you use a spy? If your France can use a spy like in the classical era, that
You
fast?
get your
Castles.
first spy at castles. And you also, hold on, you also get another spy with the spy agency building from your Tier 2 government.
I think we're going to see much more spy warfare now in multiplayer and in single player, just because of it. Because there's so much more strategy, so much more options, and as Sarnit was saying, like there's so much more. Like it's more cost efficient than before. So even if it takes you 6 or 7 turns to get a spy out from one of your cities, that 6 or 7 turns might result being like 300 gold in 5 turns after, or like 100 gold extra 5 turns later again.
Like, let's say, what if you have another situation like I had in a France game? This was before Rise and Fall hit. But I had 3 spies in an enemy civ, and each of them was taking 300 gold every 3 turns. That's 900 gold every 3 turns. That's incredible. Could you imagine how much damage that would deal to a player now?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. This is enough to bring that player down if he's next to yourself or another player who has a big army.
What do you do to counteract us? Is there something to counteract them? So
Yeah, you put a
building-
spy in your city and you tell it to counter spy. But if you don't pick the right thing, it's going to have a hard time catching the spy that's not there. So if I tell it to counter spy in, let's say, my capital, I have to tell it to counter spy in my campuses or in my industrial zone or other districts.
Am I wrong to say that the spy has a 1 range? So if you put him in your capital city, let's say in your city center, it will counter spy in all the districts within 1 tile from that spy?
I do not know specifically. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, I think it's within 1 tile, because if you move it to like a neighborhood or something, or a campus, it will say the spy will protect this campus and other districts are adjacent to it. I think I'm about
I
90%
think so as well.
sure.
Yeah. But even though, if let's say you play single player and you don't want to steal gold, there's still the old missions as well, which allows you to stop the eye from winning. So you put a few spies in those spaceports, and if you're lucky enough, they're going to get disabled just before that player goes to space.
Yes.
Or you could steal all those culture, like all those like writings from the other players to try to boost your own culture win.
Yep, you can do that. You can steal technology boosts, which can be really impactful now with how science gets a pretty good kick in the chest from the city-state applications involved. Having to build taller means you get those smaller bonuses early. And, I mean, those boosts become more important.
It does include the technologies without boost as well from the later eras. So if that player already has that technology which could not be boosted or could only be boosted by a scientific if you get one, that spy could actually boost it for you if the player has it.
They can they can steal a boost for any technology that the target player has that you do not. I mean, what is one feature, each of you, that you particularly like more than the rest that got added? And what is one that you wish got added that did not?
Obviously, I think most people that played Civ 5 will agree with this, but the like the UN system they had in Civ 5 was really fun and good. I hope they had that at one point. The feature that I like that they added. I'll let Auguthy answer before I answer that.
Okay, thank you. One thing I disagreed with the new change, a feature that I'm not happy about, is actually the production overflow. So if you queue something up and you get too much production on it, before in the base game you'd lose actually a big chunk of that production. But now you keep some of it. So I think this is it's an interesting change that we have to test about, but there's a few ways to abuse it, which I don't really like. Although I really like the new changes to, my favorite change is the decrease of science per population. It used to be 0.7, now it's 0.5 if you want the numbers. So it means that like having a lot of population, Empire doesn't give you more science than before. But you gain a little less science and it slows the game up, and it basically like balances out how strong science was before.
Fair enough. There's some really good points there. Under, did you want to finish yours now, or?
I think my favorite feature, although it's not a feature so to speak, might be the lesser relevant wars at the game. But apart from that, it's probably the ages, because when I'm playing, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I like to always get the Eurekas no matter what. I like to scout the whole map and find as many like huts as possible and that sort of thing. So I really like the Dark Age, Normal Age, and Heroic Age thing.
All right, that's pretty fair points from both of you. What about you, Louis?
I think my favorite thing is the ages too, and the fact that it's more about building tall cities is more of a thing now than before. So it's a little more like Civ 4 in that way. That ties into it that you have to build it. You can't just get the bonus for that initial building. You have to build the sub building like the campus. You don't get any bonus for the city states until you get the library, and I like that better too.
All right, what was one thing that you did not like that they added?
Is that for Louis or everyone or me or what?
That was for Louis. You guys kind of gave an answer there.
I can't think of anything specifically that I don't like that they added.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. For me, what I liked the most was the loyalty system. I really liked how you kind of had to pay attention with culture flipping in past Civ games, but you didn't in this one. You just kind of didn't really give a crap whether your people were happy or upset. So I was really glad to see the loyalty system implemented to control that. It also controls a lot of other factors in the game that I particularly enjoy. For something that I dislike, that's kind of hard. For me, it's going to be, I'm going to go back to that production queue. I want that added. But for thing I did not like that they did add, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to go with multiplayer stability. I'm kind of sidestepping here, but you supposedly worked on the stability in multiplayer games. So you technically added something in there somewhere to try and make it better for people. It's kind of a turkey shoot with that, because we've had some large games go off without a hitch, But we've also had small games, like a 4-man, for instance, to a specific example, that was plagued with desyncs and crashes left, right, and center. And it had to be scrapped. These people tried to get their game going over 2 hours, and it was just horrible. They only made it to turn 40. And if its stability is being worked on, that whatever's causing that issue definitely needs to be identified.
Yeah, I've only played 2 multiplayer games, but they've both been really stable actually. But they were stable from the get-go, not just.
I think overall, like, this is actually a really good thing for the game. Like, most people, I think, would enjoy the expansion, and the stability as well has been pretty good on my side as well.
Absolutely, I would definitely agree. This expansion was a huge success with the community at large for single multiplayer. You know, people who play with their friends alike. You know, it's received a lot of love and admiration from the community, and it's well deserved. And I sincerely hope that this expansion's release, with everything that's come with it, becomes the new standard for what we can expect from Firaxis in the future, whether it's DLCs or another expansion a year or so down the line.
Soon we'll be talking about Civ 7.
Oh,
There'll be another expansion first, I think.
It's usually five. This was a 6-year cycle actually, because the Civ 5 came out in 2010.
well, either way,
5.
we'll be waiting quite anxiously and readily, because we definitely want to see what else Firaxis has in store, and we definitely want to see what you, the players out there, have in store to show people too, because there's so much more added to the game, so much more you can do. Show off your strategies, show off what you can do in this game, because you're going to surprise everyone. There's always going to be something new you can do.
I know you guys have ADCP fever, so you want to see what happens with that too.
Oh yeah, the Dual League is coming along nicely. There's a lot of kinks to iron out as we're, learning through time. But the big thing is getting people adapted to the new expansion. And we'll cross those bridges when we get there. But for now, that's going to wrap up the weekly podcast for this week. A huge thanks to my co-host, King Louis XIV, as well as to my 2 guests, Under and Agathy. Thank you for coming on board, gentlemen, this week. It was great to have you.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. A big thanks to all of our viewers out there, whether you're joining us on Twitch or YouTube Live. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time.